Hi, this is Steve Wagner, and this is a brief presentation on Fiedler's contingency model of leadership. Now, Fiedler's contingency model suggests that a leader's effectiveness depends on how well his or her style matches the work situation that they have control and influence in. Fiedler's theory started with his observations of clinical psychologists, and he didn't originally hypothesize this contingency approach, but it ended up in a very different place from his original research. Fiedler looked at a person's leadership style using a scale he called the least preferred coworker scale. And so he would ask people to describe the coworker with whom they least preferred to work. And the more favorable they rated that person who they least preferred, the more he considered them relationship oriented. And the lower they rated that person who they least preferred, he would classify them as a task-oriented leader. Now, originally, Fiedler believed that the relationship-oriented leaders, or the high LPC leaders, would be more effective than the low LPC leaders, just across the board. His research didn't support that hypothesis, and so Fiedler just didn't throw it out, and he said, well, let me see if I can take some other factors into account. Let's look at the situation. So he looked at different characteristics of the situation and how favorable that situation was, how much situational control the leader had. And he looked in particular in three factors: the relations between the leader and the member, how well liked the leader was, whether he or she was trusted and respected, the task structure. Was it something that the group had done before that is well structured, cut and dry? Is it something that's easy to evaluate? And then finally he said, let's look at the position power. How much authority does the leader have to reward and punish subordinates? When he took that into account, he found that the effectiveness of the leader depended on both the situational favorability and the leadership style. So again, using the least preferred coworker, leaders are either task-oriented or relationship-oriented, and he looked at situations ranging from very favorable, which would be those on the far left, okay, where leader-member relations are good and the task is highly structured and the leader has a lot of position power. And he looked at different combination of those situational factors all the way to the right, where we had a very unfavorable situation where there were poor leader-member relations and unstructured tasks and weak position power. And we can see here that the solid line represents the effectiveness of task-oriented leaders, and the dotted line is relationship-oriented leaders. And so what Fiedler found was that under situations that were either highly favorable or highly unfavorable, that it was the task-oriented leaders that were most effective. And it was only in those moderate situations where there was a mix of these situational factors that the relationship-oriented leaders were most effective. There's a lot to be said for Fiedler's model. There's been research on it, and there is some empirical support for his theory. He did a great job applying this theory. He created a program called the Leader Match Program, where he would assess leaders and assess situations and make recommendations to organizations on who should be assigned to different leadership positions. It really was one of the first leadership theories to take the situation into account. And probably its historical significance is why this theory is really still something that's important to talk about. Now, there are some weaknesses to this theory also. For one, even though the data support the theory was a post hoc theory, and it's kind of hard to figure out the rationale behind the theory. Also, it's not really clear what that least preferred coworker scale is measuring. It's not like the leader behavior scales that were developed in Ohio State and Michigan. Also, his approach of saying that you're either relationship-oriented or task-oriented, really that view has gone out of style. He didn't feel like you could switch from one style to the other. He said you're either one or the other and that's it. And we tend to think of leaders being able to switch between those styles, and that was not part of Fiedler's theory. Here is the original reference for Fiedler's work. As always, it's good to go back to that source material and to see what the original authors were saying. I recommend you do that. Thank you.